This is the existing table for my boat, and I've taken it apart to clean that up. I started sanding the first board. You can see it does look pretty good. The sanders that I'm using are these two. I watched some videos and people are using rotary sanders, and I've always been taught that you have to sand with the grain. So a rotary sander doesn't make any sense to me, but the results were pretty nice. So I have a lot of work to do, prep to do before I even start assigning any kind of finish work to it. But you can see it's a nice table. It does come up like this, and then there's a clever little method on the bottom that there's a board comes across here. It pivots out, and then it holds this guy up. I can't reach it. And then it has the piano hinges here, and I've taken the piano hinge off of that one, and this board's turned out fairly good. Quite a bit more sanding to do on that. And this is the, well, I guess we would call this the before. So it is a slow process. You take the wood and you sand it, and you sand it, and you sand it. And of course you have to unassemble it or disassemble it, and then sand it, and keep sanding it. And I have a long way to go. Obviously there's no sponsorship here, but I do like the Ryobi or Ryobi, and I'm particularly fond of this guy, which is a relatively new purchase, because the sandpaper actually just fastens with Velcro type of fastening to the bottom, whereas this guy is a bit of a pain to assemble it and fasten it correctly, and it seems to come out a bit, but I like that guy. Anyway, just a quick progress shot to show that getting a few more pieces to start to get the varnish off. I still have a long way to go as far as sanding goes, but it's I think it is actually starting to look pretty good. Often it helps to have some sort of record of how the pieces are assembled, so that I can put them back the way they're supposed to be. So this is, in a previous video, I showed this little piece. I didn't show this little piece because I couldn't, but this rotates out to hold the leaf when it's in place, and then when it's supposed to be down, then this little piece slides back in. But I just wanted to do a quick video to show myself mostly what these pieces look like that I'm disassembling, so I know how to put it back together properly. There's a nice washer on both sides of this to help it rotate. So it looks like whoever, well, my friend Louis Norris, who has since passed, did this for me the last time, and it looks like he didn't take it apart. He just varnished on top of it. Well, I'll take it apart and get that varnish off of there. I'm getting close to finishing the sanding. You know, you sand, and then you sand, and then you sand, and then you sand some more. So I'm prepped for the next phase, which will be, I have some good materials here, the tack cloth on the left, and then I use the gloves to keep the oil from my hands off of the wood, and then of course the Interlux varnish and a Interlux thinner. So the first several coats that go on will be very, very, very thin. But before that happens, I have teak cleaner parts 1 and 2, which I think are pretty important too. And then I have a little brush there that I use to brush the sand, the wood off of the pieces rather than using my hand to wipe it off. I'm not claiming to be any kind of an expert. I'm just sharing how I approach this. And one of the secrets that I use that has worked for me is that it's not a rush. I take my time, do it right, and take my time again and go back and try to do it even better, so that over the course of several weeks of sanding, I should be ready to move on to the next phase, and I'm all set up with my pieces there in order to do that. It's the middle of September 2024 right now, and it's the end of the season for the boat anyway, so there's no great loss by not having this in the cockpit to set anything on, because probably not going to be up in the cockpit anyway now. My goal is possibly achievable, is to get the sanding completed before the middle of next week, where I'll go back out and spend a week or so on the boat and let the dust settle as much as possible here in my workshop. And then maybe in a couple of weeks when I get back, I'll be ready to start actually varnishing, preparing for the varnishing. But I think I might not make my deadline. All right, so now the second coat of Semco teak cleaner has been put on. Did lighten it up a little bit. It got pretty dark on that first one, but on the second one, and the instructions say that it will lighten it up. Hope I didn't kill that ivy down there with the Semco. I don't suspect it would, but anyway, I can see a few spots where I missed some varnish, which is not good. So I'm gonna let this stuff dry and come back in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna be on the boat for a couple of weeks, but I'll come back home and it should be ready for varnish. All right, so the next phase is the tack cloths to wipe down all of the wood so that it has the least amount of little dust particles on it. Can't get rid of all of them, I'm sure. But yesterday I did the Semco parts 1 and parts 2, and that worked out pretty good. It's a little scary at first because it gets really dark, and then the places where the hinges go, the stainless steel hinges go, I didn't really do a lot of removal there, because there's a little lip there between there's two surfaces here, and I didn't really want to destroy the second surface. It's just a slight little lip there. You can't, it's on the top here. Let's see. A little bit at the top, and then down here at the bottom. That's where the hinge goes, but it fits in there. I didn't want to grind down the top part. So anyway, this is the next phase, is to tack down all of with the tack cloths, with a professional tack cloth there, and use that to pick up as much little particles that are on the boards as possible. But this is going to sit for a couple of weeks while I'm out on the East Coast on the boat. hopes that the dust will be settled more so than we have right now. And we got the little robot cleaning the floor. I'll use a carpet shampooer to clean this nice rubber floor that I have in my workshop. And then I'll get some more of the dust out, and a lot of the dust will settle hopefully over the next 2 weeks, and then on to the next phase. Okay, back in the saddle. My first coat is about 50% Interlux 333 brushing liquid and 50% Interlux Schoner varnish. And so it's a very light coat on these boards. They're still wet right now, and I will show that. They look pretty good for the first coat. They're still wet. They'll get better. And then I have the other pieces. First coat, again, just the varnish, 50-50, 50 thinning, 50% thinning oil, 50% varnish, or approximately. And that's the first base coat on the one side. Let it dry for a day. Put the other sides, pieces, get them varnished, and then let them dry for a day. And then I will go on to, I use steel wool, preferably bronze or brass, copper, whatever. That doesn't rust, although it doesn't matter here. When I was on the boat last week, some of those pieces do stay on the deck somewhere and they rust. So it's not a good idea to use anything but a non-rusting type of abrasive. I don't use sandpaper. I just scruff it up with steel wool. And like I said, I'm no expert. I'm just sharing how I do it. So this is the day after the first coat of varnish was put on. It was mostly thinner, 50% thinner, maybe a little bit more on these pieces of wood. And they look fairly nice, a little darker than they were originally. That might be because of the thinner, but when I looked at the video before, you could see little bubbles, some few spots, but they're gone now. And I use these disposable brushes. I use this one to put the varnish on, but then I used a littler one to go around the edges that didn't, now the brush didn't have any varnish on it, but I just put it, used it to go around the edges in the event that there was possibly some drip. Let's see if any of the varnish had dripped. So just along the edge, I just run it across the edge there with a fresh brush, just in case there's any dripping. You know, it should stop the drips from happening. With the amount of varnish that's there, which is 50%, shouldn't probably get any drips. Now I know in a previous video I said I was going to take these off, but I decided not to because what's happened is these screws weren't coming out, and so that's a good reason to just leave them in. It's not a big deal anyway. So this is the other boards. Now this is the actual tabletop that pivots up and has the lip on the end. Again, I didn't take the screws out here because when I was taking the screws out of here, one of them just stripped, and so I thought maybe it would be better not to disassemble this little lip here and just leave it there. I think it's okay. Okay, now this is the bottom portion of the wood, first time being stained with about 50%. I used the bronze wool, which really wasn't necessary here. But what happens is on the boat, as I've said many times, is that steel wool rusts. If you don't get it all off the deck, you got some rust. So this is wet. All I did was the top that's exposed now, and then I used that small little 1-inch brush to go around, and maybe if there's any sort of drips, to try to pick it up. And then these are the other pieces here. You can see it's still wet, but it should dry better looking. But this is just the first coat. The bronze wool did a really nice job of smoothing it out, and it provides sort of an abrasive, rough finish for future coats of varnish. So it's a good thing to do, but it's certainly less compact than steel wool is. So there's a lot of little pieces. So before I put this coat on, I had to do definitely had to do the tack rags to get any possible little bronze pieces that were left, to get them off. So I've mixed the varnish and the thinning or brushing liquid, about 25% thinning liquid and 75% varnish. So it's starting to look a little bit better. I do spend a lot of time with that bronze wool. I'm trying to get, everything nice and smooth. I am seeing some bubbles in here right now, but I think it'll maybe level out as it dries. If not, then I'll just use some more bronze wool. I'm definitely not gonna I'm gonna get some regular steel wool. The bronze wool doesn't last very long. It's, I don't know, maybe flimsy would be the word, but it's just it just kind of vanishes, I guess is the best word. So starting to build this up. I'll probably put 7 or 8, maybe 9 coats on it. So you can see I'm starting to get a nicer little finish. The first coat was 50-50 varnish to thinning liquid, and the second coat now is 25% thinning liquid and 75% varnish. So I've got a long way to go, but it's starting to look nicer anyway. This is definitely a lot of work. This is the first coat of 100% varnish on this side, and it looks good. It finishes, it dries differently. I was waiting the 24 hours, but they wait the 24 hours and then you start prepping, and then it's 26 or 27 hours before you're ready to put the next coat on, and then you got to wait 24 hours from that. So I took the old blue tape off and I went and bought some 1-inch tape, which is still too wide. So I had to cut all of that tape. It would have been nice if the blue tape had little lines on it indicating where 5/8 was, or 9/16 or 7/16. That would have been beneficial for me. I don't know how that works for most people just trying to protect an edge. And these are the other boards. First coat of full varnish, 100%, and then the steel wool scruffs it down quite a bit, and then I put some more coats on. I'm thinking, well, this is a long process. My buddy Louis Norris did this for me, took it home, brought it back all varnished. I think he charged me $200, and it was quite a gift. I didn't realize it at the time, but there's a tremendous amount of time and effort that goes into making this as good as I can. I don't claim to be a professional varnisher by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a lot of work. So, got a lot of brushes, not enough. I'm sure I'll have to do more, but I also take the good use of the yogurt containers, the glass containers, and as I took my pieces apart, I put them in separate containers, so hopefully as I go to put it back together, I'll have all of the pieces there that I can use for reassembly without, looking through every single one. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? So I think that's a good method too. So I have one coat of all varnish, no thinner, and this is before I start to put the second coat on. I have it scruffed up with the steel wool to give the varnish, the newest coat of varnish, something to grab onto. I haven't put the what do we call that stuff? I'll have to go look at it. I forgot the name of it. Cat cloth. That's what happens when you get old. Sometimes you forget these things. So, just looking at it, it's dirty for sure right now. One of the advantages of doing one side at a time, of course, is that I get to scruff up the most current finish twice, because I do it once now, and then I'll do it again before I actually put another coat of varnish on it. All right, another coat of full varnish on one of the sides. It's starting to look better and better. After I scruff it, it does kind of lose a lot of the sheen. I hope it doesn't lose a lot of the actual varnish. I think I'm starting to get some coats on there. So now I'm in, I think around 2 o'clock. So tomorrow I won't be able to start till 2. That means I'll finish at 3 or 3:30, and then that'll put me in, I'm moving a couple hours every day away from the start time, adding an extra couple hours. These are the leaves that fold up or down, and there's another full coat of varnish on here. Seems like after all the work, it doesn't really make sense not to put several coats of varnish on here. Plus, due to the season, it's middle of October. All right, another coat of 100% varnish. Things are definitely looking really good in most cases. There's some spots where I'm not quite sure why this is happening, but it is, and I'll show it to you on the other boards. But I took one rail off for the leaf, and the other, this is one of them, and then the other one I left on because I had troubles with the screws. I'm not sure if it's showing up, but this is where I got some trouble right on the edge there. It's a little extra buildup of varnish. Now I take the steel wool and I smooth it down, but then I'm still getting some buildup at some spots on the edges, not all of them. But I gotta say, it certainly looks better than it did before, but that's not much of a comparison or anything to say. There's a tremendous amount of effort. I'm conflicted going back out on the boat for a couple of weeks next week, which means I could get maybe 5 or 6 coats of varnish on these boards, and I would be rushing to get it back up, and I don't see any reason to get it back up. So I will probably not make the next deadline to get this guy, this table reassembled and put back in the cockpit. And now another coat of 100% varnish. Definitely is sort of rewarding, really, to take a look at the progress that's being made here. And I just don't see any reason not to keep putting varnish on. You know, it's the end of the season. There's no rush to put it back. And so I'll just keep scruffing and trying to clean up any little globs that are there. Try to do the best that I can. Maybe someone who's looking at these might say, hey, you're doing this wrong or you're doing that wrong. I think there's a place on YouTube to do exactly that. And if any professionals out there see something wrong, I'd definitely appreciate a comment on what should be done. I know one thing that I'm not doing is filtering the varnish. I'm just applying it straight. I know they sell filters that might be a little bit better method, but it's definitely looking good to me. All right, it's got some drips here. You can see on the side, I got some drips there. I try to wipe that off with the 1-inch foam brush after I apply the varnish up here. My goal is to get enough varnish on there so we don't see the grain, the drips in the grain, you know, the up and down, the peaks and valleys is the goal. But I don't know if that's just going to keep replicating over and over and over again. We'll just keep putting some more on. It's looking good. And here we go with these are the leaves. Getting a little more. Whoa. Wonder what that is. It looks some kind of dust. Hopefully that came after. Oh my gosh, it's all over the place. I don't know where that came from or what it is, but you can still see in one of these it looked like there was a couple of fingerprints, like right there. Kind of looks like fingerprints. And I'm wearing those rubber gloves or latex gloves, so I don't know why we got that, but I'm getting ready now to scruff it up for another coat. Okay, so we're looking at another scruffing, which you can see takes off the shine in some places where I got the bubbles or drips. It takes off quite a bit of the varnish. But I was mentioning in a previous video, I thought I saw some fingerprints on the board, and I was thinking about it, and I couldn't understand how I could get fingerprints by wearing these latex gloves. But I'll bet what happened was I touched my face with my gloves, and then I touched the boards. I'm tempted, these are the leaves, I'm tempted to go back to a less than 100% varnish and just keep putting it on thinner. I think I'll do that today. Go back to maybe 25% thinner and 75% varnish. All right, I switched back to 25% varnish. That other 100% just seemed too thick, and I'm not in any hurry, so I'm back. Ooh, that's got some imperfections in it. And I'm also going to start using the filters. I'm going to buy some filters and start using them. There's a little bit of a film on top of the varnish in the can, so that's a problem. I like this looking a little bit better. So these are the leaves. I just like the thinner coats. And there's no rush to finish, so there's no reason, in my opinion, to keep putting all of that varnish on there. Now there might be a reason to just stop putting all that varnish on there, and I might find it out, but I think we'll stick with this. There's a few imperfections here, and I was thinking that had I taken this lip off, if we go over here on this side, you can see it probably will look better on the piece that I took that lip off, because I didn't quite get in there all the way. It looks a little, maybe some of the varnish is still there, so that might have been a mistake too. And the reason I didn't take it off, I wasn't lazy, but one of those screws was hard to get out on the other lip. So these are the leaves, getting a little bit better, more coats on it. While I was at Walmart today, I was looking for thinner blue tape. They didn't have anything. It's all 0.94 inches that I've identified. Now, there's going to need a lot of work there too, and I don't know what happened. Now, from previous videos, I did a lot of sanding on some of the edges. It looks like I need to do some work here, definitely. And then I mentioned in the other video, I got some other containers that kind of measure, but it's not gradiated enough. Don't need a lot of these because, you know, if you have a few, after a couple days, the varnish that's left in the container hardens, and you can kind of squeeze the container, and it pretty much cleans out the varnish that goes away. So a lot of work to do. As I said, it's 2 hours approximately of work. So last night I started at 8, I finished at 10 in the evening. So if I'm ambitious, I would start at 10 tonight and finish at noon, but I think I might just wait till tomorrow and just get an early start. And so if I start at, say, 6, finish at 8, then the next day I can start at 8 and finish at 10, and then the next day I can start at 10 and finish at noon, and then I'll be out of here, back on the boat for a couple of weeks. So it's a little frustrating, not major, but I'd say, well, I need this when I'm on the boat, and I go, oh, that's at home. And then when I'm at home and I go, well, I need this, it's on the boat. And as I said in a previous video, the boat is 600 miles away from the house. The house is 600 miles away from the boat. So it's not like running over from one place to another. So we're looking at another coat, 25% varnish, approximately. And you can see up close, look at the drips here. They're not, I get a lot of work to do there. Although this is on the bottom of the table, that opening is where these pieces fit, and then they rotate out. It's highly unlikely that anyone would see them, but nonetheless, I like to get it right. And since there's no rush, there isn't any excuse not to. So I went to Walmart this morning to buy some graduated containers, and I got them, but they're not that great. This is not one of them. I was looking for filters, and I didn't find any filters, but they have some here because I went to West Marine, which I feel sorry for. I was the only customer there. I don't know how they do business, and their sign says they're closed on Sundays and Mondays. I would not be purchasing stock in West Marine, that's for sure. So this is the container. It's got all kinds of great graduations of different types of mixtures, which will be very helpful. And I got the filters. I went to Walmart this morning, and I almost grabbed coffee filters, and I said, yeah, what's the difference? Is there really a difference? And if you look through, you can see definitely that this is not as fine of a filter as a coffee filter is. So I'm in good shape, except West Marine didn't have the Interlux varnish. But in New Jersey, I've purchased Interlux varnish. So I have a little bit more here. It has a bit of a film on it when I open it up, so this filter is very important. But next week I'll be on the boat, and I have Interlux varnish there, so I'll bring it back. It's 600 miles away, so I can't just jump in the car and go get it, but I think I'll be okay until then. Another coat, probably 25%. I didn't really use the gradients on this side of the measuring containers, and I did stay up till 10 o'clock to start this work, which means that it's 11:30, 11:40 right now. So that means that tomorrow I wouldn't be able to start the next coat till 11:40, 12 o'clock, midnight. I don't think that's going to happen. It does look good, and so a lot of it goes away when I scruff it up. And the leaves, a lot of that looks good right now, and then it doesn't. After, oh, did I miss a spot right there? I think I did. Maybe. I did sand it. I didn't just scruff it up. There were some blobs that needed to be sanded, so I did. So that's where we are. I used the filters. I used the container, but I didn't really use the gradients on the side to do a percentage mix, but I think it's 25% or more thinner. We're looking at another thin coat, probably 25% varnish and 25% thinner and 75% varnish. I'm getting ready to scruff it up. It takes 2 hours almost to prepare and to apply. So Saturday night I went from 10 o'clock in the evening till midnight, which meant that I couldn't start again till midnight on Sunday, which is a little bit too late for me. So now it's Monday morning, and I'll be able to start You can see on this guy there's a glob there. I'll have to take care of that. We're looking at the leaves now. The 25% thinner, 75% varnish. It's really looking nice. I wouldn't say it's looking great, but I'm impressed, you know, because I'm the guy doing this. So it's pretty cool. We'll definitely get there. I'm gonna leave in the next couple days to be on the boat. So I won't finish this before I leave, but I will be able to finish it when I get back. Another scruffed up example here. It looks better before I scruff it. I'm not sure how much I'm actually leaving on there as far as varnish goes, but I still have to tack cloth it. And again, I forgot to do this one, so I'll have to come back and do that. So now we're looking at the leaves. This is the bottom side of the leaves. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm trying to get it as perfect as possible. That little corner right there doesn't look so good, but I'll keep thinning it out, the varnish, and putting it on. All right, another coat. This time, still I'm trying to do 20-25% thinner, but what's happening is that I'm pouring more varnish into the container, and lessons learned. I've learned pour the varnish first. It's easier because I'm using a filter. So I get a certain amount of varnish in the container, and then it's easier to pour the thinner after the varnish. So that's one lesson learned. Because I can't really see how much varnish is going in when I'm holding the filter. So I put the varnish in first, and then I can see how much varnish I have, and I can be more accurate with my amount of thinner. But I'm also pouring the unused varnish back into the can, and so it's probably more than 25% thinner. These are the leaves. Another lesson learned is to not take off the latex gloves until I've finished these videos, because sometimes the video while I'm making it, I see something that needs to be remedied, so I want to put a little more varnish someplace or use the brush again, and I think it's better to have the gloves back on. Plus, until I totally seal the can, I don't get any of that stuff on my hands, which is not that easy to clean off compared to how easy it is to have clean hands after I take the latex. And here we are again with another coat of varnish on there. I'm going to scruff it up and then add another coat of varnish, scruff it up with some steel wool, which gives the next coat of varnish something to grab onto. It looks pretty good. And then it's going to sit for a couple of weeks because I'll be out on the boat. And then I wanted to get it done and back in the cockpit, but before I went out again tomorrow, but didn't happen. So if I look really close, I don't know if it'll show up in the camera, but there are like scratch marks. Now I've put the varnish on here after I used the steel wool to just to scruff up the varnish below it so that the new steel wool had something to grab onto. But there are some scratch marks on it, visible. I don't know what that is. Oh, it looks like scratch marks. It might be brush marks, but that shouldn't be. But, and it's It's on these pieces where I think the varnish looks too thick. That kind of looks like fingerprints. I don't know what to do about that. But this is what we got so far. I'm gonna scruff it up, then put another coat of varnish on in a 25% thinner, 75% varnish. You know, as I do some of these pieces and scrub them up and sand them down and try to make them as close to perfect as possible, I am thinking about the fact that some of these pieces are not visible to once they're back in place on the boat. Certain parts of those are definitely not visible. And then I'm also looking at this and saying, you know, this is a lot of work and it's just not perfect. And I'm a little disappointed in that. But all in all, I am kind of impressed with my work, because this is not anything close to what I do on a daily basis. More pictures of the leaves that come up and down. I'm heading out to the East Coast tomorrow to spend a couple weeks on the boat. I can do a little varnish work out there, because I looked at the weather and it should be pretty nice for varnish work. Temperature wise, looking in mid-70s, they're saying, unless I was looking at the wrong area, but I think I got it right. Anyway, it'll be a couple weeks now before I do anything here, so this stuff will be pretty well hardened by the time I get back. I'm gonna order some more bronze wool and have it delivered out there to the boat. All right, I sanded it down. I put the teak cleaner part A and B, or 1 and 2, and I let that dry for 24 hours or close to it. And I showed a picture of the before, and then also showed a picture of the other side of the aft rail. I get a few coats on. We're supposed to be in the 70s here in Jersey City next week. I think it's in the 60s right now. It's quite comfortable. And I'll get a few coats on next week and tomorrow. All right, the blue tape is in place. It's a beautiful day here in Jersey City. It's supposed to go up as high as 79 degrees next week. This is the 3rd week of October 2024. So I should have a few days available for putting in varnish onto the second aft grab rail. And here we have the first coat, 50% varnish, 50% thinner on the aft grab rail. Today's Sunday. I got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And if I stick around, I work on Fridays here in Brooklyn. If I stick around, I can get one more coat on Saturday. So after the first coat of 50-50, 50% thinner 50% varnish. It doesn't look very good. It's still rough. I just tack clothed it down, getting ready to put the second coat on. It's going to be a lot less thinner and a lot more varnish for this one. Second coat of varnish. We have incredible warm weather this week in Jersey City, and there's my fear that the supervisor, my dog, will touch the railing. Another coat of varnish on this beautiful day in Jersey City. This particular guy is darker than the other side, and I'm not quite sure why. This might be the last coat of the season. It's a full varnish, no thinner. But what I noticed on the other side, the grab rail on the other side, the starboard side, I already varnished it. But some of the varnish, I was wiping it up on the outside of the blue tape, and what happened is, in some places it spread a very thin coat of varnish, which is now there permanently, and I have to get that off. I also noticed that using the brass or bronze wool, and I do have a little sliver right up there stuck in the varnish, so that's going to have to be scruffed down if there's one more coat, because the weather's about to change here. It's pretty nice today. I might be able to get one in tomorrow. Probably not. So if you look on this side real closely, you can see where the tape was and where it wasn't. I scrubbed this down with Comet, but there's still a residual amount of varnish there. So this time on the other side, on the starboard side, those aren't bubbles of varnish, that's water. I was scrubbing it down. But to try to avoid this happening on this side, what happened on this side happening on the other side is that I'll go back afterwards and wipe it down with the thinner. So hopefully that will eliminate this mess, which I thought maybe Comet would be abrasive enough, but I don't know. I have to figure out another way to get that off now.